The creation of modern music is a narcissistically masturbatory practice that I think needs reform. And I don't think it's going to be reformed until we actually reframe how we think of art and artists. So I'll start the conversation. Earlier this week, a friend invited me over to his place after the bars closed. They closed earlier than normal here in Nashville because of COVID and all that wonderful stuff. Without outing him or anything, I'm just gonna call him Tom. Tom was feeling very unfocused. He was feeling uncentered. Tom has been a career musician. He's been doing music as his day job for years now. He's an incredibly talented bass player. You can tell he loves music on a very deep, I would say, arguably a spiritual level. Most of the projects that he's a part of are cover bands, but he does get to make ridiculous money, not having to travel very often, or at very least not living out of a tour bus, which is a lot harder to do than it is to just say, oh yeah, I could do that. Try it sometime. So Tom is engaged to the woman of his dreams. He is working a dream job, yet somehow is having this feeling of being unfocused or uncentered or pushed off kilter, starting to build anxiety and just not feeling fulfilled doing what he's been doing for years. We had talked through it maybe being like, well, is it because you're playing other people's music and it's not super complicated or enriching music? And we were like, no, because you love doing what you do. You live to get up there on the stage and get into it and perform. So I don't think that's it. Which, for the record, no shade to people who do cover bands for a living. It's an admirable profession. So then I asked him the way that I would ask anyone who is feeling stuck or lost, why do you do what you do? Why do you live to perform music? He didn't know how to answer it other than just saying he thrives off of it. It's always been that thing that has resonated with him strongly. That's not the worst answer because music is inherently therapeutic. I think that's why it is a key portion of being human. But I tried pushing him a little bit further. Just because you find the creation of music therapeutic doesn't mean that it's your vocation. And in this case, I think it is his vocation. So he failed to come up with any other reasons. And I said to him, if you're not making music or doing anything with helping others as your main goal, then you're not doing it for the right reasons and you're not gonna feel fulfilled. Again, I think this applies to anything in a person's life. However, musicians and Western artists are uniquely awful at this. We have a way of romanticizing artists. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but when it gets to the point of fetishizing them, that's where it starts to get very unhealthy. So what causes this fetishization to fester and grow? And why is it particularly terrible now in the 21st century, much more so than it used to be? The creation of art is idolized for its own sake, mostly because people do feel enriched by it, but they start to lose the reasoning as to why and start to just accept the axiom that creating art is good, not necessarily thinking that not all art that is created is inherently good. So we have the cultural result without understanding the actual reason why that cultural result exists, which opens up room for perversion. Because the artist makes good art, there is adulation given to the artist, and I don't necessarily think that's inherently wrong either. However, individuals will see that adulation and want it for themselves. This partly has to do with how human social hierarchies are set up and wanting to work your way up the social ladder. Other parts of it may have to do with narcissism. Human beings have variable levels of narcissistic qualities from person to person based upon their natural attributes, but those get exacerbated when put in certain circumstances. Another societal mechanism that contributes to this bad perspective of art is this consumerist perspective from an unhealthy expression of capitalism. When you're essentially being a hedonist and just consuming to have a false sense of satisfaction, when you're really just giving yourself dopamine hits with no real substance undergirding it, you wind up with people making music for a ego boost, for an ego stroking, and people consuming it for the same reasons. All of these factors lend themselves towards an overly self-indulgent society, which the culture is intertwined, so you will have overly self-indulgent music being made and consumed in an overly self-indulgent way. This turns the artistic practice and process into an ego worship ceremony, and this makes it very appealing to narcissists. The number one societal mechanism perpetuating this cycle, which is almost like a downward spiral, is the fact that we as a Western society say that it's okay for artists to be overly egocentric because, well, they're just artists and they're just expressing themselves, and we are inherently saying that is good for its own sake. There is some truth in saying that having self-expression and being in touch with yourself or creating something that is therapeutic to your soul or your mind, yeah, that's a good thing, but it's being perverted. I know very few people who get into a music career based upon non-self-indulgent reasons. And a lot of the people who are very successful in this industry, even though they may be pretty dang good people, I think stay in the industry for self-indulgent reasons. In all honesty, how many artists do you know that go and write and make music and go and perform on stage specifically to make their fans' lives better? It's not to say that obviously you can't have fun and still have that kind of ego boost doing what you do. That is a natural part of the process. One person who I think embodies the healthy expression of this is Dave Grohl. I could be wrong, but I think Dave Grohl is one of those guys. Now, it would be easy to look at pop music and pull out so many examples, probably because it is the primary genre where this hedonistic ego worship is so blatant and rampant, but this exists in every genre. The one where I think it exists the least, frankly, is in country and folk music. Shocking to come out of my mouth, I know, but my personal opinion. So why is this important to be addressed at all? Why does it matter as long as you're not hurting anyone else? Because the culture contributes to itself. It evolves naturally and subconsciously in its own way, yes, but if you're seeing where there's errors and problems, you need to make concrete steps to correct that through your own volition. An extraordinarily self-indulgent culture will breed very self-indulgent people, and there's a lot of argument going on right now of what system of life and culture and government are the best way of doing things. May I posit to all of you that none of them work if the people within them aren't striving to be good people. And that starts with culture and philosophy. I am a believer that your intention for taking action on something is just as important as the action itself. Your intention for taking action will influence what fruits are manifested from that. If we create music and indulge in music the same way that people create and indulge in very unhealthy food or drugs or video games in an unhealthy way, we're going to have negative results. And I would at least like to start a conversation about how to change that. So what do you guys think? You think I'm completely full crap? Let me know in the comments below. Give me some examples of some of your least favorite overly indulgent artists. Any genre, don't care. Tell me down below in the comments. If you like this video, if you like what I do on this channel, hit that like button, subscribe. That is always a wonderful thing to do. Support me on Subscribestar. That is the only way I can keep making badass videos for you. And you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Become the Night. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Rock on.